lifestyle. Sports cards and we live now. Jeremy Lee in the building and every guest that you ever needed. Sports cards after hours keep the hobby heated. Updates, hobby talk like you never seen it. Sports cards live and none could ever beat it. Sports cards is a lifestyle. Sports cards and we live now. Welcome to another episode of Sports Cards Live with your host, Jeremy Lee.
All right, everybody, welcome to REA Auctions live preview for the fall catalog auction. This is the official auction preview on Sports Cards Live. It is Thursday night, November the 16th, 2023. My name is Jeremy Lee. Tonight's guest is the president of REA Auctions, Mr. Brian Dwyer. Let's bring him out right now, get this thing started. Brian, how are you today, Brian? It's an exciting day. The auction just went live. How are you feeling?
I'm good. Good to be here. Yeah, big day. Auctions off to the races. So having fun watching the bids come in.
All right, good stuff. So this is a big one. Approximately 4,100 lots in the auction. But the headliner is quite an important card. The 1914 Baltimore News Babe Ruth, the Sultan of Swat, the great Bambino, I should say. This is exciting. Why don't let's jump right in. Let's talk about this card and really what makes it so special. I mean, there's only 10 known copies. That seems to me to be a pretty big deal. Why don't you just kind of expound upon that a little bit?
Yeah, so I mean, right off the bat, like you said, only 10 known copies, super rare card. But when you really get to the root of the card, it is the first time that Ruth, we all know who he is, what he was to the game of baseball. It's the first time that he appeared on a collectible. This was 1914. Ruth was 19 years old, and he was in professional baseball for the first time. And this card captures him for the first time as a member of the Baltimore Orioles. And a lot of people are probably scratching their heads. They never realized that Ruth was an Oriole, but in fact, he was born in Baltimore, joined the International League team for a short spell before going to Boston, and then going on to be the Bambino that we know.
Now, this card, my understanding is that, and I've seen pictures of both, but it was produced in two different colors. There's a red version and a blue version, and both copies really, they only have one color to them. So today's card, and even sports cards going back to the early 1900s, were produced using 4 printing plates, the 4 that we're used to. Am I correct in saying that these cards were used with only 1 printing plate?
Probably, yeah. So, I mean, they're monochromatic in the sense that Ruth's image on the red is in red. He's outlined in red, and on the blue, he's all in blue. So yeah, we don't know actually a ton about how these were made. We know that the Baltimore News, which was a newspaper in Baltimore, produced them, but we don't know why. We don't know how. We don't know how they disseminated them. It's really been an enigma. And frankly, we didn't even know this set existed until the 1980s. So it's so cool when you start diving into it.
Isn't that kind of mind-boggling that we didn't know, the hobby did not know that these things even existed? Does that mean that Jefferson Burdick, who's the godfather of the sports card hobby, he didn't even know that this thing existed?
Yeah, they weren't known. And even now, going on 40 years that we've known that they've been out there, there's only about 70 examples from the 3 sets in that era produced in that region that have been discovered. We know the 10 Ruths, there's 14, 15 other players that are featured, but super rare, super interesting, and then iconic because it included Ruth.
Now, the fact that this card, and for everybody, we'll have a look at it shortly, but notice on your screen, the very bottom right corner, we have a little image of it sitting right at the bottom, just to the right of where it says you can view, register, and bid at robertedwardauctions.com. So if you haven't yet done that, please go ahead, check out the website, register, and view all the items and bid as you'd like. As I mentioned earlier, just over 4,100 lots. Now, on the card itself, it notes that Babe Ruth was a pitcher. Now, I think a lot of people know that he was a pitcher, then a batter. But can you sort of speak to that and the progression through his career from the early days as being better known as a pitcher to later on being better known as a home run hitter?
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of people say that if Ruth had continued being a pitcher, he might have made the Hall of Fame as a pitcher. I mean, he was really talented in both elements of the game. It's why we hear his name thrown around with Ohtani today. I mean, you look at what Ohtani's doing on the diamond. He's that double threat that Ruth was over 100 years ago. So, we know that he started off as a pitcher. He's most proud of his pitching. His legacy, again, starts with the pitching mound. But obviously he became known as the home run hitter. And when you look at his progression, I mean, 138 home runs he hit, which beat Roger Connor's career record. And then he goes on to hit 714. He not only breaks the record, he decimates the record. So he proved his merits as a fielder and a hitter. And that's what we know him as today.
Now, I love collecting vintage sports cards. And one of the things I love most about vintage sports cards is that they all have a story. And while they have a story, we often don't know that story. We can let our imaginations run wild as to who opened this, what cigarette pack or what chocolate bar or what bubblegum pack did these come out of, who owned it, and where has that card traveled. Now, this card is unique. My understanding is that it's been in the same family for over 100 years. Can you share anything about this family? I think the fact that there might be some provenance here, or there is, adds just a layer of interest, and it makes this card that much more interesting, I think, to the whole hobby. But can you let us know anything about the family, how they first acquired it, or the individual within the family, and perhaps why now, over 100 years later, are they bringing it to market?
Yeah, so it's actually, to your point, it's got incredible provenance. It's got such a great story. It was collected in 1914 by a paper boy for the Baltimore News. It stayed in his family for generations, well documented. People in the family remember seeing the cards, playing with the cards. Obviously, I didn't know that it was going to be worth what it was worth today. Maybe if they had kept it in a little bit better condition, we'd be talking $20 or $25 million. But it's been in their family since 1914. They lent it to the Babe Ruth Birthplace and Museum in Baltimore starting in 1998. So they shared it with the community. They were in Baltimore area themselves. And it was on display there from 1998 until 2021. They actually sold it privately in 2021. So it had a short pit stop with another collector, but they saw all the news around the baseball card hobby and the pricing, and they sold it privately. Our consignor is the collector that bought it 2 years ago, and he's decided that he's going to sell it now. But the person that wins this auction will be only the third owner, and that's really amazing when you think about it.
I mean, that you almost understate it when you say that's amazing. There are cards that have come out in the last 15 years, important, significant cards that have traded hands 24 times.
Sure.
And that probably applies to cards in the last 5 years. And this card being likely, and I just want to bring up a comment we had right here. LA Collection, welcome to the show, says this is the most significant card of the most significant player in history, period. Yeah. And it's only traded hands 3 times, or it will trade hands for the 3rd time on December 3rd at the ending of the REA Fall Catalog Auction. That's it's kind of mind blowing, and it's kind of nice to know that these stories are still out there. What do you think?
No, I mean, it's absolutely true. I mean, you could write novels about so many different aspects of this card. Its rarity, its significance, its provenance, its value. It's just, I agree with the comment. I mean, we truly believe this is the most significant baseball card ever produced. When you think about Ruth, when you think about who he became, when you think who he was as an endorser, and people, wanted him to sponsor their products, this is the first time that he appeared on any collectible ever. And they're still marketing his name today. The guy's been dead 75 years, and he's still as big of a business as he was back then. So it's hugely impressive. It's hugely significant. And the provenance element is just another wonderful, wonderful angle.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. Okay, so, we've all been well aware, and when I say we all, I mean, people who've been in the hobby for really for anything more than a few weeks even. But I remember in the early 90s, mid 90s, when Wayne Gretzky and Bruce McNall purchased the the finest, what I think is, I guess, the highest graded copy of the T206 Honus Wagner card for $451,000. That card has changed hands several times since then. And that card is legendary and pretty much known as the most iconic card in the sports card hobby. The reason I bring that card up is because I want to kind of put it into perspective, this 1914 Baltimore News Babe Ruth. And I think we want to compare it to something. It's kind of the way we operate. And I'd like to compare it to the T206 Honus Wagner, of which there are approximately 60 known examples out there, which is 50 more than the 1914 Baltimore News Babe Ruth. And Babe Ruth is a much more well-known player, historical figure than Honus Wagner has ever been. I mean, he transcends the hobby almost, like Muhammad Ali and Michael Jordan. It's pretty crazy. So can you just is this card potentially in a position to usurp the T206 Honus Wagner as the most important and iconic card in our hobby?
Well, look, I think the Wagner will always be at the top as far as recognition. I mean, our hope and our goal is that we can bring awareness to the Baltimore News Babe Ruth and educate people about its significance. And we think that obviously turning in a huge number at the auction will do that, documenting it. I mean, these just don't come up. This is the first time in over 10 years that one has been up for auction. So if you think about what's changed in the hobby just in the last year, 12 to 18 months, forget about going back 10 or 11 years, how much the hobby's changed and how far we've come. We feel like this is really poised to be special. There's so many new people. There's bigger numbers. 10 years ago, cards were not selling for millions of dollars. And now you look at the barriers that have been crossed. 2 million was crossed, 5 million was crossed, 6 million was crossed, 7 million, 12 million. I mean, it's a very special time for the hobby, and this is a very special card.
I guess it seems to me that if this card breaks the all-time record, that it might push it towards that level that the Wagner is in. And I also wonder if a lot of people are, I think one of the things that drives the Wagner is that the T206 set is a set builders project. There's so many people who work on that set, and I don't know anyone who's working on the Baltimore News set from 1914 with the Babe Ruth, and maybe that's partially why the Wagner is as iconic as it is. However, I feel like in the hobby, a lot of people are moving away from that set building, the goals of building sets for all the wonderful sets, and they're more or less there is a movement towards really just collecting the most important cards of your favorite players, the most important players, and not necessarily going after all the cards from the sets. Now, are you noticing that at all? And do you think that might work in the Ruth's favor? And I know we're really just having hobby talk here about what is the most iconic, but it's fun to talk about and to think about.
Yeah, so we've absolutely noticed the set building change. And I mean, I think a large part of that was the rise in grading costs. I mean, it became untenable to grade commons when the buy-in price for grading was $30 or $40 for cards that, you were used to paying $10 to buy in PSA 7 or 8 and build your sets. So we've definitely seen a shift. To your point, I mean, we actually do know of a couple people that are trying to get every Baltimore News card, but it's not as wide of an endeavor as the T206 set. That being said, even if you remove the Baltimore News Ruth from the conversation for a minute, we have seen Gaudy Ruths and other significant caramel Ruths and even a Sporting News Ruth draw in new buyers who are saying, look, I'm going to sell a bunch of my bulk, so to speak, and go and get some of these grails. And so whether it's grail cards or grail players, that's what we've seen over the last couple of years. And that's why I think you've seen such a rise in prices, because you've got more people kind of colliding and saying, look, this is where we want to put our money.
So the T206 set is I believe it's 562 cards, something like that. How many cards are in the 1914 Baltimore News set?
Well, we don't know. So we surmise that a card was made for every player. We know of at least 15 different players. This auction actually features 15 different players and 14 players, one manager, and Jack Dunn. But, it wouldn't surprise me if something that we didn't know about popped up one day. Frankly, we're hoping that all the publicity around this card draws out some exciting new finds, and we can tell another story about something that's been in a family for generations. So we don't know. We're still learning, which is also the cool part about this.
And I guess we're going to discover its value here. The opening bid was set at $2.5 million. What can you, and I mean, it just went live yesterday. What can you tell us about where it's at right now, to the extent of what's the bid up to? How many bids have we seen? Do we know how many unique bidders? What are you willing and able to share with us as to the status of the auction right now?
Yeah, so we've seen 12 bids come in already. The bid inclusive of the buyer's premium is at $6.3 million. Every bid thus far is from a different bidder. So we have 12 bidders in there qualified. So just really tremendous early interest. We expected there to be a couple people that were elbowing for space at the beginning, but to see that it came out of the gate so hot, we're very, very excited.
So that's a lot of money already, 6.6 or so million dollars. Yeah, and I'd like to hear that we have 12 unique bidders. It's not just two people going back and forth. That to me is evidence that there's a real market out there for this card. I don't think, not like we needed that. It's the card, it speaks for itself, but that's great to hear. Let's go to a couple comments that have been coming through so far. Jason Puck says, nice title, looking forward to the preview. And we're going to have a look at this card and a few others as well shortly. Rage in the house. What's going on, Rage? Good to see you. Orlando from A Collector's Dream is here. Goes on to say, my favorite auction house, Robert Edward Auctions. That's a nice compliment right there for sure. Jonathan Clark says, could be the best auction in the 15 years I've been following. It is loaded. Jonathan Clark, thank you. Welcome. Vintage Card Collector, congrats on the Ruth consignment, Brian. There's been chatter online that SGC overgraded it. Any comments on that aspect?
Well, look, I mean, I think for as long as grading's been around, people have disagreed with grades at every level of the grading scale. So I think that there are people out there that say it's accurately graded. There are people that say it's overgraded. Ultimately, there's always going to be more variation in condition on the lower end of the scale, and I think that's what people might not be thinking about or taking into consideration. At a 10 grade, you've got to be all there. You've got to be all buttoned up. On the lower end of the scale, creases and paper loss and stock loss and corner wear, they can all be present in some form or fashion, and you're going to have a greater variation in appearance at the lower end. So look, SGC knew the eyeballs that this card was going to be getting, and I think it's graded where it should be.
And I mean, SGC is known for their vintage grading skill set. I mean, I remember seeing a video with one of the longest tenured graders in the hobby with the same company. I think he's been there for as long as years. How many?
20 plus.
20 plus years. Yeah, I mean, I don't remember his name, but after I saw that video, I gained a lot of respect for the vintage graders there. And I mean, listen, any grading company, we're dealing with human opinion as far as the human grading companies go. So you're gonna see a variance of opinions over time, I would think, and between different people. LA Collection says it's too rare and unusual of a set to ever be a set builder set. All that matters is the Babe Ruth himself. This card should shatter the 52 Mantle record. Sorry, Mickey, that's the $12.5 or so million record we're talking about there.
Yeah, 12.6. And just to interject something real quick. So you said, there's 10 of these cards known. There's 60 Wagners. PSA and SGC have combined to grade over 2,800 52 Topps Mantle cards. Put that into the world for a little bit.
I mean, just as far as, you talk about scarcity. I mean, this thing is scarce. Who wouldn't want a copy of this card? Only 10 known to go around. And speaking to LA Collections comment that it is unusual to be how many people can actually go for the set if only 10 people can ever own it, where the 52 Topps or the T206, and let's face it, the T206 set, a lot of people collect that without ever thinking they'll land a Wagner. They want everything but the Wagner.
Yep.
The Ruth, the 1914 Baltimore News, you kind of want the Babe Ruth, because I don't know any of the other players in the set. So it's a bit of a different thing. Orlando says the Baltimore Ruth is the hobby grail for baseball cards. It's Babe's rookie. And Business 124 says REA and Brian are class acts. Love working with them. Very nice comment, Business 124. Thanks for sharing it. So let's take a look at it, Brian. Let's bring it up on the screen. Let's bring the auction up. So here it is. This is the card that we're talking about right here. I'll just make it even bigger in the SGC 3 holder. And as you can see right here, the bid is currently at $5.25 million. Plus buyer's premium gets it to what you said before. I forget what you said, 6.3. 6.3. So an amazing card. And let's have a look at the back of it as well, right there. So this card was actually a schedule of the Baltimore International League in the 1914 series. What are your thoughts on that nature of it?
I mean, I just think it's another intriguing element. I mean, again, no matter how you tackle this card, I think it has so many cool factors about it. So you've got the home and abroad schedule, you've got the year on it, you've got the fact that it's Baltimore. But, the front is obviously where it's all at. You've got Ruth there, full body shot. You'll see some of the other cards later, I'm sure, where they're, cropped images or just the player's face or torso. And you've got Ruth here in all his glory, 19 years old, not as big as we maybe thought of him in the 20s or 30s, but a tall guy, strong guy. And, kind of looking on, not even knowing what's coming down the road for him.
And so this is an image of the rest of the set. So the Ruth is its own lot, and then I believe the Jack Dunn is its own lot, being the manager and really the person who's credited with discovering Babe Ruth. And then the rest of the cards fill out a third lot, which we'll get to shortly. Brian, anything else you'd like to add about this item before we move on from it?
Well, look, I mean, I could talk about this item for days. I mean, I think one of the questions that we've been getting recently has been, how do you arrive at an estimate for a card that hasn't sold in 10 plus years? And it's been 15 years since a card of this grade sold. And if you read our description, I think you'll follow the logic that we tie this to the Wagner card. In 2013, REA sold a PSA 1 Baltimore News Ruth and a PSA 1 T206 Wagner in the same auction. So same day, same time, same everything, same audience. One of the rare opportunities to compare those two cards. The Ruth outsold the Wagner in that auction. The Ruth went for $450,000. The Wagner went for $402,000. That Wagner card sold again last year for almost $3.2 million. And so we believe that if a Ruth in that same auction had been available, it would have been comparable. That was for a PSA 1. This is a 3. So that's how we're arriving at it. We're tying it to the Wagner. The market for Wagners is approaching 8 figures, exceeding 8 figures for some grades. So we think it's right there.
All right. A couple more comments before we go on. LA Collections says too many people want to cry about how the card is overgraded and are not taking into consideration that this card is graded differently than most other cards. Does that resonate with you, Brian?
Well, look, I mean, I think the grading companies aspire to treat all cards equally. I think that this card's slightly larger than other cards. This card has colored borders, so maybe there's some more forgiveness to some of the chipping. But, again, I mean, I worked at a grading company. It's no secret. My background's available for people. I had nothing to do with the grading of this card. We didn't submit this card for grading. But as somebody that has seen hundreds of thousands of cards pass through the grading room, as somebody that has submitted tens of thousands of cards for grading himself, I can tell you that the greatest variation in appearance is at the lower end of the scale. So, that's just a fact in my opinion.
Yeah, it doesn't look, nothing looks off to me. I've reviewed my share of vintage cards, and you're going to see creases, you're going to see some loss of surface at the corners like this one shows. And I feel like I don't know, nothing bothers me about this card at all as far as the grade goes. LA Collection says, Brian, I love Calvin, by the way. I've been submitting consignments REA through him for years. And Sports Card Pete, great card, Brian. How has the feedback been from the non-hobby community?
I mean, tremendous. This has made mainstream news in a way that not only is exciting for REA, but it's exciting for the hobby. I mean, I was on the Today Show the other day. Wall Street Journal did a great profile of the card today. We were able to take it down to Baltimore, got some great coverage there. I've been hearing from people from all walks of life. I've been hearing from people in all parts of the world. Frankly, I have family in Europe that sent me links to the article. So it's really resonating with people, and they're excited because people know Babe Ruth. 2 years ago, when I sold the Honus Wagner card, people looked at me and said, "Who's Honus Wagner?" I literally need to tell nobody who Babe Ruth is. And that's the exciting part about this card.
Awesome. All right, let's go on. Let's have a look at the next lot then, which is the Jack Dunn. This is also from the series. This is an SGC 2. It does look to me to be in worse shape than the Ruth 3. What would you like people to know about this Jack Dunn 1914 Baltimore News card?
So Jack Dunn just has a tremendous story. I mean, frankly, I didn't even know the details of his story until I started researching this card and this set and the connection to Babe Ruth. I associate Dunn with the T206 set, but he, lifelong baseball man, great player himself, manager, good businessman, brought the team to Baltimore. And in 1914, he's made aware of that there's a kid, a 19-year-old kid at the St. Mary's Industrial School for Boys. He goes over, talks to the priests there. They say, look, he's a ward of the state. He's a ward of the school. The only way you can get this kid is for you to become his legal guardian. And so Jack Dunn assumes guardianship of Babe Ruth at 19 and takes him to join his team, the Baltimore Orioles of the International League. And the reason that we know him as Babe Ruth today is because the other players on the team hazed him and said, look, this is Dunn's baby, because Babe Ruth had been in this industrial school from the age of 7 to the age of 19. He had never been on a train. He had never been in an elevator. He had never been out in the world. And they hazed him and they said, look at that baby, Dunn's baby. And then they shortened it to Babe.
Oh, that's a great story. So this is sitting at 13,500, significantly less than the Babe Ruth card, which is already at 5 point. What were we at there? Pre-buyer's premium. The Babe Ruth is sitting at 5.25, and you can get his manager and the man who discovered him for 13.5 right now. Lots of time left. This auction does end December 3rd, and again, visit robertedwardauctions.com to register to bid and to view all 4,100 plus lots. Now, here's the lot for the rest of the cards that we believe is the rest of the set. There might be more to be discovered. I like that there's a few different colors here as well of the cards. Brian, pretty cool. $70,000 right now for this 13 card lot. Anything in here that you'd like to mention? Any other players of significance?
Well, I mean, there's some players that maybe some more hardcore fans might recognize. You've got Bertie Cree in there. You've got Neil Ball. The great thing, like you pointed out, is that you've got representation of the blue variations. You've got representation of the red variations. And you really formulate kind of the story of Babe Ruth, right? You've got Babe Ruth, you've got his manager, and then you've got his teammates. And so these 15 cards really tell the origin story of Ruth. So I mean, again, I could talk for hours and days about how significant this collection is, but like the Ruth, this group originated with the same family of the Paperboy, stayed in their collection for more than 100 years. Whoever owns these will only be the third owner.
So this is part of the set that the original Paperboy collected back in 1914.
Yeah. Yep.
They've all been, that's something that's really unique in our space now too, Brian, is that we as collectors can build the set if we so choose. Cards might have come from various sets. This is the original set that was put together. That's just mind-blowing. You just don't really see that, especially over 100 years old. All right, well, let's take a look at some non-1914 Baltimore News cards. So next up on our list here is the 1951 Bowman Mickey Mantle, the true rookie card in a near mint PSA 7 holder, currently at $29,000. I love this card. To me, this card is underappreciated. Now, I know it is appreciated, but the fact that the 52 Topps Mickey Mantle, which is simply his first Topps card, gets the status of being, the first or second most iconic card in the whole hobby, kind of makes this one an opportunity, I think, for people because number one, it is beautiful. It's also a beautiful card. Maybe not as beautiful as the 52 tops. It's still beautiful. I love it. I have a copy of this card. Absolutely love it. And this one is in a near mint 7 holder. What are your thoughts on this card, Brian, and maybe even in the context as it relates to the 52 tops?
Yeah, so look, I agree with you. I do think it is underappreciated. I do think it represents an interesting value. If you look at it grade for grade compared to the 52, they usually trade at about a third of the 52. It's no secret that, I like the 52, but I have a 51. I have a 52. This particular example I like because very frequently you'll see a horizontal print line going through his head at or near the nameplate. This is free of that. And I think it's got really good colors, often plagued by registration issue. This is pretty good with respect to registration. And the colors, the colors just really pop. So a good looking example.
Yeah, it's it's off center a little bit low and to the right, but still not poorly centered at all. A great copy, no doubt. I'd love to own a copy like that. Before we move on, I do want to just go to the professor. Says thank you for hosting this preview show. Yeah, it's always my pleasure, Professor. Thank you for joining. And Orlando says there's a Ruth blue variation also. So we have seen. I've been aware of that. I think we've seen a copy of that in the media in the last couple of years as well. Is that right, Brian?
Yeah. So they do exist in both variations, both colors. We actually were able to reunite a blue and a red last night. We did an exhibit and an event at the Baltimore Babe Ruth Museum. So they had a 2 on loan to them. We brought down our 3 and we had 1 of each. So 2 of the 10 were together for a couple hours yesterday.
That's unbelievable. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that event and maybe what it meant to the Babe Ruth Museum? I'm assuming, I've never been, that the people working there are, hardcore Babe Ruth fanatics and really love the story and the history of the man and baseball itself. What did it mean for you all to be down there? And I did see a picture of it on Instagram on the Robert Edward Auctions Instagram account. What did it mean for you guys and for the staff there and people who came to visit that you were there and those cards were reunited?
Yeah, it was really special. I had been to the museum as a patron 10 or 15 years ago. It's a nice place. It's where Ruth was born, and it just brings together a lot of artifacts from his career. For them, it was very special. This card had been loaned to them in 1998, and they displayed it and they told the story. Now, obviously, that it's up for auction, it came out, but they had another benefactor who stepped in and agreed to loan the blue variation. Mm-hmm. And so when we suggested that we would bring Babe back to Baltimore, they got very excited. And we had dozens of collectors come in and view the card in public. We had a reception last night for some VIPs. And it was really cool to just be able to put the card back in the place where his life began.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, and who knows, maybe as we go throughout the next half hour of the show, we might come back to this card yet again. It is
a lot to talk about.
Right. There's so many things we could talk about when it comes to the Babe Ruth. Let's move on now to the card we just alluded to in discussing the 51 Bowman, the rookie card for Mickey Mantle. You kind of also want to look at what is the most important Mickey Mantle card on the planet, which is the 52 Topps, number 311, a high series card. Legend has it that cases and cases of this were dumped into the Hudson, I believe it is. And there's still many out there. This is a beautiful copy, a near mint 7, just like the Bowman card. Something that I don't know if a lot of people know, Brian, there are 2 versions of this card. This is my preferred version. Why? Because you have the complete square around the Yankees logo. You have 4 black borders. The other variant or the other version doesn't have the bottom black line. I like it to be complete. Why don't you let us know, first of all, speak to this specific copy that is in your auction this month, and maybe can you help educate us on the 2 different versions of the card?
Yeah. So, if you look at the current bid on this card, it kind of hammers home the point that we were just talking about with respect to the 51 being undervalued. They're both sevens. They're both in the same auction. This is at 155,000 right now. The Bowman's at 29,000. Obviously, both will go up. I think the gap will tighten, but this is a great example. It's got nice big borders. Centering is pretty strong. I mean, off a little bit to the right, as you can see, but really good color, really good clarity. Registration's all there, corners all there. Has the NBA stickers, right up top, signifying that it's a high-end example. So very, very attractive card. I agree with you with respect to the variations. I prefer the type that has the complete border. That being said, not going to kick any Mantle 52 out of the collection, but from a preference perspective, I'm with you.
Yeah, I hear you. The other thing I like about this is that the other version has like a pixel missing somewhere here in the blue background. And to me, that's like it's a manufacturer's print defect. This doesn't have that. And so I do prefer this copy, but like you, Brian, I would not ignore one version over the other in discerning which one I want for myself. I would probably overlook that and just go for the copy that is within my budget and the nicest at that price point. So
Yeah,
I'm with you on that as well. The
And
NBA
frankly,
dime, that's for Mike Baker Authenticated. Mike was the first grader at PSA back when PSA really started, and this is his kind of a second opinion on eye appeal. And when you see his stickers, it means that it has high eye appeal, or higher than average eye appeal for the grade. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, I agree. I mean, it really just kind of denotes that it's a high-end example. And I was just going to say, with respect to pricing, I don't know that I've seen the hobby value type 1 or type 2 differently, but I do think it just comes down to personal preference. But this is a great one, no matter how you slice it, and should double up hopefully before the auction's over, but we'll see.
All right. Let's see what we have next. Another Mickey Mantle 55 Bowman, 1955 Bowman in a mint PSA 9 holder. Hockey is my favorite sport to collect, and Bobby Orr being, probably the one of, if not the most important vintage rookie card. It comes in a TV set sort of motif as well as this one, and this is actually 11 years older. Tell us a little bit about this card and its popularity amongst Mantle collectors and baseball collectors, for that matter.
Well, yeah, I've always loved this set because if you think back to 1955, the idea of color television was really new and exciting, and it presented the players, and there's great player selection in that set in a very new and interesting way. I don't have to tell serious card collectors how fragile these colored borders are. So these chip very easily. They frequently are displaying white at the corners or along the edges. And this card, I mean, if you go across, you're going to see it's really in as close to original condition as you can get. Any of these tannish kind of pixels that you see at the top, that's just the rough cut. The Bowmans of that era sometimes had a little bit of a rough cut, and that's not wear. So this example is all there. Again, frequently suffers from registration issues, frequently suffers from print defects, fish eyes. You won't find a flaw on this example.
Very nice. Yeah. As we look at, and I'm well aware of sort of a rough cut border, considering my experience with O-Pee-Chee hockey cards, and I can recognize that right away. The only thing I'm noticing on the edges of this card, as I just go across one more time, is just right here a little, but I mean, I'm magnified pretty seriously here. You're probably not even going to notice that. If I click out, even from here, you can't even see it. So very minor, definitely minor. A nice card for sure. Okay, let's move. And $130,000, not far behind the 52 tops. A Mickey Mantle that we see right over here, sitting at 155. All right, next up. Now this card, I do not know what this is, Brian. I'm hoping you can educate us. 1921 Frederick Photo, F-O-T-O, Babe Ruth. It's an SGC 2, meaning good condition. What can you tell us about this unique piece?
Yeah, this is a card that I remember the first time I saw it, I was completely blown away by it. It's a card that, you look at and you say, how does this even exist? I frequently would compare, prior to this auction, ironically, the Baltimore News Ruth and the Frederick photo as two Ruth cards that I was enamored by and I just never got to see. And so for us to have the two of them in one auction is pretty special. If you look really closely at the image of Ruth, he's pictured in a Red Sox uniform, and then above he's pictured, or he's denoted as a member of the Yankees. So this card was issued right after the trade, so fresh that they kind of conflated the jersey and the words there, but fewer than 10 known to exist. Frederick Photo was a company out of Northern California. They produced a bunch of cards of major leaguers and Pacific Coast leaguers. And, this is just incredibly rare. This is a card 10 years ago you could get for $15,000, $20,000, $25,000. And now it's just become a regular six-figure card whenever they turn up.
And we're at six figures right now, $100,000. With 17 days left in the auction. Again, this does end December 3rd. Visit robertedwardauctions.com to view, register, and bid. All right, let's keep on going. Now, we're going to go from Mickey Mantle and Babe Ruth in 1914 to 1952 and 55 to really 1997. This is, and this card is amazing. Metal Universe Championship, Precious Metal Gems, Michael Jordan. This might be one of the prettiest cards ever made that isn't a vintage. I do have a propensity for vintage, Brian, but this is an amazing modern card. Michael Jordan and a BGS 8.5. Only 50 copies of this card were ever produced. And I can tell you, I rub shoulders with some of the biggest Michael Jordan collectors in the world, and this is up there. This is a tier 1 Michael Jordan insert card. You can see the serial number. Let me just do it this way. There's a serial number right there, number 014 of 50. It says PMG. Brian, this is just an awesome card. It's got that scopy sort of effect to it. If you hold it under light and move it around, this thing reflects light beautifully. What is it? REA in my mind is known for vintage. I love seeing modern stuff as well. How do you feel yourself about, how proud are you to have this card in the fall catalog auction in 2023?
Yeah, it's great. And, you say we're getting away from Ruth and Mantle, but we're sticking with the GOATs, right? Jordan's a guy whose name transcends just the hobby, transcends basketball. He's really entered the cultural discussion. So I agree with you. I was struck by the appearance of the card. I think it's a great looking card. The PMG's rare, very, very desirable. You mentioned tier 1 collectibles for 90s and modern collectors. So we're happy to have it. And I think it really just hammers home the fact that REA has always offered more than just vintage baseball, but in the last several years, we've really made conscious efforts to branch out and bring more variety, reach more collectors. You'll see basketball, you'll see modern cards, you'll see gaming cards and Pokemon cards, and something for everyone. That's our goal.
$26,000 right now with time to go. I don't know. Do you have an estimate? Are you aware of what your estimate is on this card at all?
We haven't placed an estimate on it because we just don't know. I mean, anytime you get into these rare cards, serial numbered cards with respect to modern, they don't trade that frequently. So we expect it to get a lot of attention and we expect it to go for a strong number. But what that number is, I couldn't tell you. But yeah. I think it'll be multiples of where it's at now.
Yeah, I think this could easily. I think it'll easily hit six figures, and it might even start with a 2. I wouldn't be surprised. All right, great card. Okay, let's go on to some memorabilia now. This is a 1966-67 game-used home uniform of Oscar Robertson of the Cincinnati Royals. Now, Oscar Robertson, his rookie card is in the 61 Fleer set, and just because his rookie card was in 1961 doesn't mean that he had his first season in 61, because the set previous to that was 1957. He wasn't in that. So his rookie year is somewhere between 58 and 61. I'm sure people out there know the exact year. You could find that online. But nonetheless, this is 66. So somewhere about 6 to 8 years into his season, into his career. What can you tell us about this? Where does this come from? And like, do you know the provenance of it? Anything you can add to the story?
Well, it's fresh to the hobby. I can tell you that. I admit I don't know the exact story as it relates to this one, but I know that we've been in discussions with the family that owns this for a while. They were taking stock of their options, full uniform, which is very rare to have intact. And we submitted it for authentication on their behalf, and it came back a 10. So it's incredibly well preserved. It's a significant uniform, significant jersey, significant player, heart of his career. Really excited to have this. And again, just keeping with the theme of the Jordan card, more than just baseball at REA. So you've got great basketball cards, you've got great basketball memorabilia. There's really a tremendous variety is what we're striving for.
Yeah, really cool piece. $50,000. You have a lot. I mean, you must know a lot of your clients here. When people are buying a full, like a game worn jersey or a full uniform, what are they doing with these things? Are they putting them away so that they're never going to be touched or seen, or are these things going on display?
Both. I mean, we're certainly aware of clients that buy and tuck away in a dark corner of their closet or tuck away in a safety deposit box. And then we're also aware of clients that have relationships with museums or institutions or teams or halls of fame and opt to display their items. So no right or wrong way to tackle it. But I think for especially game used memorabilia collectors, a lot of it focus on preservation. Card companies, as we know, will try and buy them and cut them up. And I think there's a significant group of the hobby that wants to make sure that doesn't happen.
I wonder how many bidders out there are defensively buying these so that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not an insignificant number.
Right. No, we can't let Upper Deck or Topps or Panini get this. We need to keep these things intact. All right, let's go to another one from 1970, between 71 73. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Milwaukee Bucks, game used home jersey photo matched. Says right here, this was presented to Kareem at the jersey retirement ceremony. So, what can you tell us about this jersey currently sitting at $52,500?
Yeah, so I mean, Kareem obviously needs no introduction. If you follow sports, he's in the conversation for greats as well. Graded a 9 out of 10. The Robertson was a 10. And, you talk about rookie years. 69 Topps was Alcindor's first rookie card. This dates to the early 70s, worn right after he changed his name from Alcindor to Abdul-Jabbar. And the Bucks kept it and presented it to him the night they retired his number. So just great story, great condition, photo matched, shows evidence of Abdul-Jabbar wearing it. Very, very significant.
Yeah, here's some of the photo match. Let's get that in view here. Lots of images with this lot right here. I think we left off right there. So the photo match, the data points are right there to be seen. Yeah, and again, visit the website, go look at these items and click through into them. You can read the nicely written lot descriptions and view more and more of the pictures. The Kareem jersey sitting at $52,500. Reggie Jackson up next. One of my favorite rookie cards to collect in my collection is my Reggie Jackson. This is the Kansas City Athletics signed game used rookie road jersey. It's a Mears A9 from the Barry Halper collection. His first major league jersey. Wow. Explain what the Barry Halper collection means, Brian, and a bit more about this piece, please.
Yeah. So, we talk about rookies, Reggie Jackson, 69 Topps. A lot of people think that Reggie was always a Yankee, but he actually started in 67 as a member of the Athletics. This is the first jersey that he wore as a professional major leaguer. The A's moved to Oakland the next year. So this is the last jersey from the Kansas City era. Who's Barry Halper? Barry Halper was a big collector based out of New Jersey, prominent part owner of the Yankees, built a tremendous collection of cards and memorabilia, donated a number of items to the Hall of Fame. His T206 Wagner is in the Hall of Fame, if anybody's seen it up there. And then he conducted a massive auction in the late 90s where a lot of his items entered the hobby. So this jersey, Halper, because of who he was, not only as a part team owner, but as a major collector, befriended a lot of athletes and got items directly from them. So this originates from that collection. Reggie won 3 World Series with the A's, so hugely significant for him. Comes with this index card signed to Barry from Reggie. So, just really, really buttoned up, no pun intended.
That's amazing right here. Barry, this certifies that this shirt is my first shirt worn in the big leagues. That is unbelievable. Talk about a COA. Very cool. All right, let's keep on rolling here. Tom Brady, New England Patriots Game News Row jersey photo match to 4 different games by Resolution and My Gray Group. Resolution is a photo matching company, My Gray as well. That seems pretty significant to me. I'm just going to scroll along and look at all this documentation. You can see down at the bottom here. I will start scrolling through the pictures as Brian starts to discuss this piece. So Brian, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, Brady, one of the modern GOATs, right? A guy whose name is no stranger to fans and collectors alike. Photo matching, I mean, we've seen that in the last couple titles. That's an element of the hobby that's really gained some steam, gained some traction in the last several years. And we've seen it really lead to higher prices because collectors can put these items right in the hands or on the backs of the players. I mean, in our summer auction, we sold a photo matched Babe Ruth bat for $1.3 million, multiples of what a non-photo matched example would have gone for. So this Brady jersey, 2013, photo evidence of him wearing them in 4 different games. So, just very, very significant. Heart of his career, great legacy, and nice condition, well-documented example.
You mentioned one of the modern GOATs. We went from talking about Babe Ruth and Mickey Mantle over to Michael Jordan. You don't skip a beat there when you're talking about the greatest athletes of all time who transcend sport. And then you get to Tom Brady, and I don't feel like we're not skipping a beat there, just in terms of the caliber of these athletes and their legacies. And I almost feel bad. Like I do think that Babe Ruth is, like, everybody knows Babe Ruth. Everybody. I don't know that everybody knows Tom Brady, but everybody knows Babe Ruth. So when I say we don't skip a beat, we don't really, only because Tom Brady hasn't had as much time to catch on maybe as Babe Ruth has with older generations. But in any event, a really cool piece, and this is a nice representation of the quality of lots you'll find on Robert Edward Auctions on REA. And again, this is only one of just over 4,100 lots in the fall catalog auction. All right, let's keep on going. A Babe Ruth 1921 original news service photograph. It's a type 1. The image was used for, it says right here, used for 1921 and 23-24 exhibits, which is another type of collectible, the exhibit portraits and images. Can you tell us a bit about, number one, this is the image used for the exhibit piece. So what are the exhibits, Brian, and how important is it to have the original photograph?
Yeah, so exhibits are postcard size cards. They were generally penny cards in exhibit vending machines back in the teens and 20s and 30s. 21 exhibits for Ruth is considered to be one of his best cards. For whatever reason, it's a great pose early with his tenure as a Yankee. And it's just a card that's resonated with collectors for many years. Full body shot, great ready to field pose, got a lot going on with it. This photograph we found in a collection, and it just stopped us in our tracks. I mean, we knew it was significant, but it was purchased 10, 15 plus years ago for just a couple $1,000s. And when we saw it today, we knew that it was something special. Card images, I mean, original photography has taken off by leaps and bounds in the last several years. We had 2 photos that broke 6 figures, Joe Jackson, Josh Gibson, in one of our auctions earlier this year. But this Ruth, being that it was used for a card, just elevates it to another level. I mean, collectors of cards really like to pair the original photography. And this one, we've heard there's only 3 examples of this photograph known to exist. This one apparently is in the best condition. So really, really special piece.
Very nice. It catches Stuke's eye, says, nice photo. Welcome to the show, Stuke. All right, let's keep on going. Another Tom Brady. This is the 2020 Flawless dual patch autograph. 10 copies produced. This is numbered 4 of 10, and it's in a PSA 10 gem mint holder. So the card is graded a 10, but the autograph has been graded and certified by PSA DNA. And so it's a 10-10, as you can see right up there in the top right corner on the grading company's label. But this is a pretty cool piece. 2 pieces of, I'm assuming these are game used pieces. I think it does say game used. Let's have a look at the back to make sure. If you look right here, does it say the enclosed game worn used material and autograph are guaranteed? So yeah, game used by Tom Brady. The autograph is graded a 10 as well. The ink it's an on-card autograph, and if you don't know what we mean by that, a lot of times grading company or card companies have players sign sheets of stickers that are later affixed to a card. As collectors, we do prefer on-card autographs, and this is that. Tom Brady has touched this card. That makes it pretty cool. There's the number 4 of 10 serial number there, Brian. And another example of REA offering a non-vintage, non-baseball card. Not that we should be surprised by that. I mean, you guys know what you're doing. Great card. What do you think of this?
Yeah, I mean, I like it. You know, we talk about modern GOATs. Brady is in that conversation. And, you know, to your point, you took the words right out of my mouth. We've seen some conversation even on social media lately about sticker autos versus on-card autos and what the difference is and what the preference is. This is a great limited edition, serial numbered on-card auto, dual patch, really an attractive card, simple but attractive. And, you know, I think it's a nice piece. Starting bid at $10,000, sold for multiples of that when it last transacted. It hasn't opened up yet, but we're early on here, and I think when the dust settles, it'll bring in a strong number.
You use the word simple to describe the aesthetic of the card, and what I take that to mean is just the white, all the white space on it, which I like. This is it's a clean card. It's not too busy. I like some busy cards. Even the Michael Jordan Precious Metal Gem seems busy, but busy can be done it can be done well, and it can be done poorly. Simple can also be done well and poorly. I am a fan of Panini's Flawless brand. I think they make very nice looking cards. So I agree with you, and I think that's it speaks to the beauty of the piece. All right, we're going to look at 2 more here. We have 2 hockey cards now. We have a 1951 Parkhurst Gordie Howe rookie card. This is an SGC 7, near mint 7. It's kind of similar to the 51 Bowman Mickey Mantle in that it's smaller than his first Topps card. But in this case, this card is actually valued more than Gordie Howe's first Topps card, which is from 1954, which is a beautiful card, more colorful than this one. But as a hockey collector, I can tell you, this is the card hockey collectors want to represent the Gordie Howe rookie in their collection. And this is a very, very sharp copy. Let's take a peek. I mean, corners and edges, I looked at it earlier, are extremely sharp. Centering, obviously, you can see it is off center to the right, but still within that 7 centering parameter. There's no doubt about that in my mind. What do you think about this card, Brian?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, anybody that's ever handled these parkies raw knows that they're very condition sensitive. The stock is not the highest of quality. So anytime you see a high grade, it's impressive. We talked about simple. The Parkhurst set is a simple set, but I think it's a simple set done well. I like the colors. I like the bylines on the bottom, the stat lines. And, 7 for this card is pretty scarce. They don't come around all that often. So the centering is what it is. I mean, I look at the corners and the edges and, think about how brittle some of these cards can be. Nice colors, great colors. So just a nice card.
Yeah, and I want to speak to the color for a quick moment, because oftentimes on these 51 Parkies, which is what they're known. They're known as Parkies, short for Parkhurst. The text at the bottom will fade. And if you notice here, we can very easily see both the black and the red text. And I would just encourage people and caution you when you're looking at these cards, if you are, and this is a very popular set for set builders, if you are looking for any of the several Hall of Famers in this set, because this was the first hockey set in 10 years, look at the text at the bottom and make sure, if it's important to you, that it is as bold as you're seeing right here, because this is definitely bold. This SGC7 copy currently at $6,000. That's going to climb quite a bit from there, I would have to think. Vintage Card Collector says, do the early Parkhurst cards tone over time? I think they do, but generally speaking, my experience, Brian, and vintage is that what you see here is kind of what you get. Like this is very consistent front and back with what I'm used to seeing, and I've handled hundreds of these. I'm not going to say thousands, but I've definitely handled hundreds of these 51 Parkies in my day. Anything to add to that at all, Brian?
No, I would agree with you. I mean, this is what I would expect to see. I almost wonder sometimes if they use two different runs of stock, because I wouldn't have called it toning, but I do kind of in the back of my mind think there's some color variation almost on some of the borders of the Parkhurst. But no, I mean, this is about what I would expect.
Yeah, and if you look closely, you might notice that the top half of the background has almost a magenta tone to it, and then as you come down, it lightens up. That's natural. That is not a flaw in this copy. That's the way these cards are. It's subtle, but if you see it, you can see what I'm talking about. All right, let's have a look at the last item, which matches my shirt of the day. 1979 Topps Wayne Gretzky rookie card in a PSA 9 holder. And, this is easily the most iconic hockey card of all time. And this is a mint 9. It does have an O-Pee-Chee counterpart or a cousin, which looks the exact same basically on the front and the back. However, the cardstock is different, so the back is different. There you can see the back of this one. The back of the O-Pee-Chee is a bit brighter, but Topps produced a higher quality product back in the day than O-Pee-Chee did. The blades didn't seem to dull nearly as much as the O-Pee-Chee did. And if you like a clean card, Topps might be the way to go. And it's not that much more prevalent out there than the O-Pee-Chee copy is. Brian, what are your thoughts on this card and really the importance of it to the hobby?
Yeah, well, I mean, you said it, most recognizable, most significant hockey card. I mean, this is the great one. This is a great example. These, because of the colored borders, they chip, they flake, they get busted up. This one's really, really nice. Sharp edges, totally different than what you'd expect with the O-Pee-Chee version, obviously, but a really clean example, free of any fish eyes, print lines, print dots, really, really sharp.
Yeah, nice looking copy. No bid yet, but that's going to change for certain as the auction progresses through. It's on its way to December the 3rd when it closes. Again, visit, register, and bid at robertedwardauctions.com. And one bonus card, Brian, something that I love is this one right here, the 1940 Superman #1. And I looked at this. This is grading out as a 3. But these cards are often very faded. Sometimes the blue and the red don't appear as bold. The color is great on this copy. I love this card. Like, to me, this is the most iconic pop culture sports card that there is. I don't know that for me that anything beats this. What about you? Am I forgetting about anything there?
No, I mean, I think that the key when we talk about the Superman card is that it crosses over, right? So there are some very recognizable, I think about Mars Attacks, some of those sets. I think about some of the Civil War news cards, very vivid imagery. But this, I mean, Superman, again, he's a name that's been the theme of tonight. Ruth, Jordan, Brady, guys and names that transcend everything. So I like this card. I agree with you. It's great. Really nice example. These cards often hide creases, wrinkles, So, it presents very well for the grade of 3. But another theme, like we said, REA is more than just vintage baseball. You've got great other sports. You've got great non-sports. You've got gaming. We've got Diego Maradona if you're into soccer. We've got Duke Kahanamoku if you're into surfing. I mean, we've got literally something for everybody.
Awesome stuff. Well, listen, I think we're good to wrap up. You know what? Before we do, there's one question that was asked earlier, and I want to give you a chance to address it. I think it's really important. It came from Vintage Card Collector. He said, "Can you discuss the level of scrutiny that you apply at REA to verify bidders of a card that could exceed $10 million to ensure that they can pay?" I think it's a great question. I want to save it to the end.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, so obviously we want to be sure that if we're taking a bid from somebody, we're going to get paid for it. The integrity of the auction is paramount to us. So anybody that registers has to provide references. We have a credit limit system where if you find that you're coming up to the credit limit, you reach out to us and we'll ask for verification of funds. Sometimes we'll ask for proof of purchase from other auction houses. At the level of the Wagner, which was 6.6 million, at the level of this Ruth, which could be 8, 9, 10, 12, 15 million, whatever the number is. Some of those buyers, all you have to do is Google them. But some of them, you're going to ask for bank statements. You're going to ask for proof of funds. You're going to ask for deposits. We've taken deposits from people, amounts where we know they're not going to walk away from it. So it's a conversation. If you're placing a bid, you're getting a phone call from us and we're aware of what's going on.
Right on. Okay, great. Yeah, I'm sure. And you've been in business how long now with REA? REA.
Yeah, I mean, REA has been in business for over 30 years. I've been with the company 12 years now.
Yeah. Okay, great. And Vintage does say the 77 Luke Skywalker would challenge Superman for most iconic. My vote's going to go to Superman.
That's a good one to pull. I didn't think of the Skywalker. We got 63,000 for one last auction. So
it is. Vintage calls out probably the what I would consider the second most iconic. Now I know iconic has different meanings to different people, but for me, I'm going to go with the one that is from 1940 and Superman. But
Mickey Mouse would be another one that's come to mind. There's some 1930s Mickey issues that could be in the conversation too.
Yeah.
But yeah, Skywalker is a good pull. I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah, definitely in play for sure. Jake Dahl, the 66 Topps Black Bat Batman. Yeah, that's like, I have a copy of that card. I don't have a copy of Superman or Luke Skywalker for that matter, but in due time. All right, guys. Well, chat, you guys, thank you for being here. We had great viewership. Thank you for joining us. Please make sure to check out the auction on the website, robertedwardauctions.com. It's been in front of you this whole time. View, register, bid there. 4,100 plus lot in the auction. I mean, that is no joke. Brian, I want to thank you for joining and for helping set this up. And any final message you'd like to send before we end this?
We should come check out the website. Obviously, the Babe Ruth, that's the big ticket, but we've got items in the auction starting as low as $50. So you don't have to have a $10 million bankroll. You can come, you can play for a couple $100, have fun. You'll learn something, see something you probably didn't know existed. So we'll watch this, and I can't wait to tell you how it all ends up.
And we will be back, everybody. Well, let me just check my notes so I don't get this wrong. We will be back live 2 weeks from now on Thursday, November the 30th, 7:30 Eastern, to update on the bidding, the action on several of the items, taking questions from you, the audience. So mark your calendars. Be sure to join us back here then. Watch the REA and the Sports Cards Live socials. And Brian and I will be back 2 weeks from now to as the auction is just starting to end and see where some of these values are and for more stories. So please join us then. Thank you, Orlando. Thank you, Vintage. Thank you, Sean Red, and everybody else who is here. Brian, thank you. Ready to end this?
All good. Appreciate it as always.
All right, guys. Ryan, hang tight one moment. Everybody else, thank you for joining. We'll see you again soon. Have a great rest of your Thursday. Good night.